it's your boy Sechaba here, and I'm going to speak to you about network topologies. So network topologies refers to an arrangement of computer nodes that communicate over a network. So I'm going to talk to you about the types of network topologies. The first one is a bus topology. A bus topology refers to a connection link of which all network nodes are connected to a single cable. And the advantages of a bus topology are that it's easy to set up, it's very cheap, and it's ideal for small companies. The disadvantages, on the other hand, are that it has a limited number of nodes of which nodes can be connected to it. And in that means that security is low because it sends a signal over a single source. So the next topology I'm going to talk about is a star topology. A star topology is a network topology which all network nodes are connected to one centralized network device, of which facilitates the network. So the advantages are that should an error occur, it can be isolated. So a mesh topology is a network topology whereby all network nodes are connected to one another. The advantages of using a mesh topology are that it requires the disadvantages of using a mesh topology is that it requires a lot of configuration, of which it makes it tedious for network configuration. And then a hybrid topology is a topology of which is a combination of all the previously mentioned network topologies. So advantages are that it can connect network nodes easily to one topology. It's easy to troubleshoot and it's easy to add on to the network as the network is more modular and you can manipulate however you want it. So the disadvantages of using a hybrid topology is that it's expensive. First of all, it requires a lot of cabling as well. So that's it for the network topologies. And now I'm going to mention the oversight model. So the oversight model is a framework that governs how applications communicate over a single network. The OSI has multiple steps in which a network transmission takes place. Firstly, the first layer is the physical layer, of which is the tangible layer, and it can include incidences such as light rays in the instances of using fiber optics. And secondly, a data link layer is a layer of which that makes sure that the transmission of data is error-free, and it uses packets in this layer. Functions such as media access control occur on this layer, and this layer uses basic protocols such as 802.3 for Ethernet, and it uses another which is 802.11 for Wi-Fi. And then thirdly, here comes the network layer. A network layer is a layer of which controls how data flows and how information is sent from one node to another, and it provides error checking. And then fourthly, the fourth OSI layer is the transport layer. The transport layer decides how much data is sent. It fundamentally ensures that data transmission is successful, of which is referenced by Kerry. And then the session layer, it includes a session between two network nodes. And then the presentation layer, it is a layer of which is responsible for translating the packets into readable information for the user to easily interpret. And then the application layer is a layer which provides the user with functions and an interface to communicate with the computer. And that's it for me today, and I'm going to hand over the presentation to my member.
Reason. An IP address is said to be expressed in a dotted decimal format. The value in each octet ranges from 0 to 225 decimal. Here is how binary octets convert to decimal. The rightmost bit or least significant bit of an octet holds a value of 2 to the power of 0. The bit just to the left that holds the value of 2 to the power of 1. This continues until the leftmost bit or most significant bit, which holds the value of 2 to the power of infinity. So if all binary bits are 1, the decimal equivalent would be 225 bits. So these octets are broken down to provide an addressing scheme that can accommodate a large and a small network. There are 5 different classes of network, which is from A to E. Given an IP address, its class can be determined from the 3 high-order bits. So now I'm going to talk about the network masks. A network mask helps you to know which portion of the address identifies the network and which portion of the address identifies the node. Class A, Class B, Class C networks have a default mask, also known as a natural mask. In order to see how a mask helps you identify the network and the node part of the address, convert the address and the mask to a binary number. Once you have the address and the mask represented in a binary, the identification of a network and host is easier. Any address bit which have corresponding mask bits set to 1 represents the network ID. Any address bits that have a corresponding mask bit set to 0 represents the node ID. Subnetting allows you to create multiple logic networks that exist within a single class or classes, for example, class A, class B, class C. If you do not subnet, you are only able to use one network from each of the classes. Each data link on a network must have a unique network ID, with every node on that link being a member of the same network. If you break a major network, it can be class A, class B, class C, into a smaller subnetwork. It allows you to create a network of interconnecting subnets. Each data link on this network would then have a unique subnet ID. Any device, a gateway that connects a network, has a distinct IP address, one of which network that is interconnected. In order to subnet a network, extend the natural mask with some of the bits from the host ID portion of the address in order to create a subnet ID. With these 3 bits, it is possible to create an 8-bit subnet. With the remaining 5 host ID bits, each subnet can create.
Hello, my name is Tobane Kemp and I'll be presenting Exploring TCP and IP ports. So what are TCPs? TCPs are transmission control protocols. They provide communication service between an application program and the internet protocol. And then an IP is an internet protocol, and it's a method in which data is transferred across the internet. It transfers data in tiny bits, which are called packets. And packets have two parts, which is the head and the body. The head describes the packet's destination, and the body contains the information being transferred. Ports provide input and output interface for the device, and they need to communicate with the computer networks. So how do TCPs and IP ports help us? They help us in receiving and delivering information, and if there is network congestion, which could be an unpredictable behavior. IP packets can be lost, duplicated, or delivered out of order. So the TCP's job is to detect these kind of problems, request retransmission of lost packets, and rearrange out of order packets, and help minimize network congestion to the occurrence of further problems. So ports, to identify ports, they usually have numbers assigned to each one of them. These port numbers range from 20 up until 6,667. And then these numbers are uniquely identified in a transaction over a network by specifying both the host and the service. Then ports are necessary to differentiate between many different IP services, such as web service, hypertext protocol, mail service, which is simple mail transfer protocol, and file transfer protocol, which is FTP. So these ports also have advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of TCP or IP ports is that they guarantee three things. Your data reaches its destination, it reaches there in time, and it reaches there without duplication. On the other hand, the disadvantages are that although all the work is done by the operating system, the user will face many problems in surfing and downloading content from the internet. Then they cannot be used for broadcast and multicast connections. They also don't have any block boundaries, so the programmer needs to create their own. Then coming to domain name system, which is my next topic. Domain name system, which is DNS in other words, is a central part of the internet, providing a way to match names from a website we are seeking to numbers which are addresses for the website, which laptops, desktops, and mobile devices are connected to the internet, and they have internet protocol addresses made up of numbers. So the DNS syncs up domain names with IP addresses, enabling people to use memorable names, while computers on the internet can use IP addresses. And then this also comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages of DNS is that it's the only system that can help you browse. You don't need to memorize IP addresses. It has security enhancement for the protection of the user's home or work connections. And then they have fast internet connections also. And then on the other hand, the disadvantages of DNS is that the DNS's registry can only be controlled by the ICANN, which is a non-profit organization with roots tied in one country. And then the DNS queries usually don't carry any information about the clients who initiated it. They are based on the principle of slave-master relationship. Then coming on to routers and switches. Routers Router's function is to direct packets to the appropriate location based on network addressing. They are also a gateway between different kinds of networks, such as networks on different IP ranges or networks that don't understand. Routers also use network address translation, which is NAT. This technology allows internal network clients to share a single public IP address for access to the outside world. It has two interfaces, one for the outside world and the other for the internal network. The outside connection is assigned a public IP address purchased from a local internet service provider, an ISP. And the internal side of the router is connected to your local network, to a local internet which contains the entire internal IPS scheme. And then switches deliver data based on the hardware addresses of the destination from computers or devices. And then the hardware addresses, also called media access control, MAC in short, are permanent identifiers bent into each NIC by the manufacturer. They are broken down into 6 pair hexadecimal values. Then these also come with routers also come with advantages and disadvantages. I'll get into the advantages. It provides connection between different network architectures such as Ethernet and Token Ring. It can choose best path across. It can choose the best path across the entire network using dynamic routing algorithms. Then it can also reduce network traffic by creating collision domains and also by creating broadcast domains. And then they are configurable, which allows network managers to make policy based on routing decisions. Then the disadvantages of these routers is that they operate based on the routable network protocols. They are expensive compared to other network protocols. Then the dynamic router communication can cause additional network overhead. They are slower as they need to analyze from layer 1 to layer 3. They require considerable amount of initial configurations. Then switches, the advantages of switches is that they increase the available bandwidth of the network. They help in reducing workload on individual host PCs. They increase the performance of the network. Then networks which use switches will have less frame collisions. They can be connected directly to the workstations. And then the disadvantages are that they are more expensive compared to network bridges. Then the network connectivity issues are difficult to be traced through the network switch. Broadcast traffic may be troublesome. Then proper design and configuration is needed in order to handle multicast packets. Then the last one is that while limiting broadcasts, they are not as good as routers. Then coming into proxies and firewalls. Proxies are programs a proxy is a program or a device that protects and improves access to a site. It creates a barrier between the local network and the internet to avoid direct communications between the client and the server. Then a firewall is an application or hardware device that protects a local network or device by blocking or allowing communications from outside to the device or network. Then the advantages and disadvantages of proxies and firewalls is that they provide comprehensive protocol-aware security analysis for the protocols they support. The topology of the internal protected network is hidden by proxy firewalls. The network discovery is made substantially more difficult because attackers do not receive packets created directly from their target systems. Then the robust protocol-aware logging is possible in proxy firewalls, and they can make it significantly easier to identify the method of an attack. Then the disadvantages are that they are not compatible with all network protocols. A reduction of performance occurs due to the additional processing requests required for application services. Then the virtual private networks may not function through a proxy firewall. The configuration of proxy firewalls can be more difficult than other firewall technologies. Then coming to my last topic, which is intrusion prevention and intrusion detection systems. An intrusion prevention system, IPS for short, is they live in the same area of the network as a firewall between the outside world and the internal network. They proactively deny network traffic based on a security profile if that packet represents an unknown threat. And then both the IDS, the IDS, which is intrusion detection system, is that it analyzes and monitors network traffic for signs that indicate attackers are using a known cyber threat or infiltrate or steal data from your network. And then both the IDS and IPS read network packets and compare the content to a database of known threats. They primarily different. The primarily difference between them is what happens next, which is where the IDS only detects and monitors. It's only a detection and monitor tool that don't take action on its own, while the IPS accepts and rejects a packet based on the rule set. Furthermore, the IDS requires a human or another system to look at the results and determine what actions to take next, which could be a full-time job depending on the amount of network traffic generated each day. The IPS, on the other hand, catches the dangerous packets and drops them before they reach their target. It's more passive than the IDS. Then the advantages of an IDS is that they can be tuned to specific content in network packets. They can look at data in the context of the protocol. They can qualify and quantify attacks. They make it easier to keep up regulations. And then the disadvantages is that they will not prevent incidents by themselves. And then an experienced engineer is needed to administer them. They don't process encrypted packets. And then the IP packets can be faked, and frequently they have false positives. And then advantages of intrusion prevention system is that they detect and stop attack before. Okay, pardon me. They detect and stop attack then advantages of the intrusion prevention system is that they detect and stop attacks, whereas the other security controls cannot. Then they support customization of detection capabilities to stop activity that is only of concern to a single organization. Then they reduce the amount of network traffic reaching other security controls, which both lowers the workload for the controls and protects those controls from direct attacks. And then the disadvantages of the IPS is that they will always be false positives, which are generated by systems that rely on a single detection method and by ones that cannot be configured at different levels. Then you need to train the system. You also need to always update the system for new malicious activities that it may not be aware of. Thank you.
Hi everybody. Today I'll be telling you about network security. We all know that in every organization, regardless of size, industry or infrastructure, it requires a degree of network security solutions in place to protect it from the ever-growing landscape of cyber threats in today's world. Network security is a broad term now, but it covers a lot. 10%, 10% on this PC. Network security is a broad term that covers a great number of technologies, devices, and processes. In its simplest term, it is a set of rules and configurations designed to protect the integrity, confidentiality, and accessibility of computer networks and data using both software and hardware technologies. And we all know, okay, maybe not all, but an organization's bottom line and reputation is closely linked to the network's architecture and whether it is protected from any vulnerabilities which can cause downtime in the network, which can cause a lot of money, which can cost a lot of money. Today's network's architecture is complex and is faced with a threat environment that is always changing and attackers that are always trying to find and exploit vulnerabilities such as devices, data, application users, and locations. Every effective network security measures access. Effective network security manages access to the network. It targets a variety of threats and stops them from entering and or spreading on the network. And how does network security work? Let me tell you all about it. Multiple layers of defense on the edge of the network. Attacks can happen at any layer of the security network model. Pause it. Network security, how does it work? It combines multiple layers of defenses at the edge and in the network. Attacks can happen at any layer of the network security layers model. So your network security hardware, software, and policies must be designed to address each layer. Each network security layer implements policies and controls that give access to authorized users, but malicious actors are blocked from carrying out exploitations and threats. There are three typical types of network security controls, which are physical, technical, and administrative. And I'm going to go through each right now. In physical network security, this one simply means the protection of personnel, protection of hardware, software, networks, and data from physical action and events that can cause serious loss or damages to an enterprise, agency, or institution. In the technical security network, this one deals with techniques that are used for authentications and protection against theft of sensitive data and information, usually in the organization. It authenticates the user's login and data such that only verified users' applications can read and access data and applications. The last type of network security, it is administrative network security. Administrative network security controls, Administrative security controls consist of security policies and processes that control user behavior, including how users are authenticated, their layer of access, and how the IT staff members implement changes on the infrastructure. Moving on to the next one, types of security networks. There are a number of types of these types of networks, and I'm going to go through them now. Network access control. This one ensures that Potential attackers cannot gain access to your network. Comprehensive access control policies need to be in place for both users and devices. Antivirus and anti-malware software are typically have a slight difference, but typically do the same thing, which they protect the network against infections caused by many types of malware, including all types of viruses, as well as rootkits, ransomware, and spyware. Firewall protection refers to a network device which blocks certain kinds of network traffic, forming a barrier between trusted and untrusted network. A virtual private network, or in short VPN, extends a private network across a public network, which means it enables users to send and receive data across a shared or public network as if their computing devices were directly connected to their private network. The advantages of network security are they protect data, they prevent cyber attacks, level of access, there's centrally controlled and centralized updates. The disadvantages of network security is that it's costly to set it up, it takes time to maintain, requires skilled staff to maintain and work on this new network security, and careless admin is very important, that the admin remains very vigilant. On my next point, we will be talking about operating systems. Operating systems are so important because without an operating system, your computer is useless. Just know that. It is the most important software that runs on a computer. It manages computer memory and processes, as well as all of its software and hardware. It also allows users to communicate with the computer without knowing how to speak the computer's language itself, because prior to operating systems, symbolic languages, assemblers, and compilers were developed for programmers to translate symbolic program code into machine code that previously would have been hand-coded, encoded, without an operating system, which means people had to write down code to actually talk to the computer to do something, as in like, if I want to open Start, I had to type in a certain type of code to just open Start, to just open the calculator, or to just switch on the PC. There are 5 types of operating systems these days, and I'll be going through them now. The mostly common one is Microsoft Office, which has existed from one form to another since 1985, and it remains one of the most popular operating systems for home and office computers. The advantages of using Windows: everyone knows how to use Windows. My nephew knows how to use Windows. Software compatibility, which means a lot of software can work using Windows operating systems. The disadvantage of using Windows are it hogs a lot of resources. Disadvantages of using Windows is that it is very it hogs the resources of the computer, which means it is really extremely RAM hungry, and it takes up a lot of space on your hard drive. And the security on Windows isn't all that great because a lot of malware infects a lot of Windows PCs. My next OS is Apple Mac OS. The family of Macintosh operating system developed by Apple includes the graphical user interface-based operating system it has designed for the use of its Macintosh series of personal computers. I'm not really familiar with Apple, but yeah, it is just one of the most popular smartphones. No, I'm lost now. Pause. My next operating system comes from Apple, which it typically does a Macintosh for their MacBooks and an iOS for their smartphones. These two operating systems have similar advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of Apple is performance is awesome, excellent security, and its best gaming experience. Everybody loves that. The disadvantages of Apple devices is they're not flexible and only supports iOS devices. The iOS is not an open source software. Applications are very large when compared to other mobile platforms. Moving on to my next one, Google's Android operating system. Android is the most popular operating system in the world, judging by the number of devices installed. Largely developed by Google, it's chiefly used on smartphones and tablets. Advantages of using Android Android has multiple features as compared to other operating systems. Android has way more apps than their competition. Android security is okay compared to other OS that have been making headlines. I won't mention names though. Many phone maker companies use Android. Disadvantages of Android is rarely used in the first world countries. People with plenty of money will mostly use iOS, which is Apple. Most apps on Android haven't been updated in 5 years. Yes, believe me. Most apps on Android market are low in quality but many in quantity, which means they have a lot to choose of, and you won't get the proper quality that you want. My next operating system is Linux operating system. Linux is the best. What's that? Okay, 3, 2. My next operating system is Linux. Linux is the best known and most used open source operating system. Linux is a software that sits underneath all of other software of the computer, receiving requests from those programs and relying these requests to computers' hardware. Linux has evolved into one of the most reliable computer ecosystems on the planet though. From smartphones to cars, supercomputers and home appliances, the Linux operating system is everywhere. Advantages of Linux OS is it's an open source operating system, which means it's free, customizable with numerous desktop environments. The possibilities are unlimited. You can design your desktop to whatever level you want it to be. Disadvantages of using Linux is there is a huge learning curve to it. You just don't jump on it like Windows. There's a huge learning curve, and that's only the disadvantage there. On my last topic, I'll be talking about backups and archives. This one I love this part. Backups, backup is about making sure your data is recoverable well, and archives ensures that your data is accessible when you need it. Meaning that backups are a secondary copy of information that are used to use. I'll be talking about backup and archiving. Backups are normally a copy of information that is used for recovering data to get an end user's Now I'll be talking about backups and archiving. Backups are secondary copies of data in an organization, which means that when in case of an event, data can be recovered quickly within, wait. Now I'll be talking about backups and archiving. A backup is about making sure your data is recoverable well. An archive ensures that your data is accessible when you need it, which means like a backup is a secondary copy of information that is used in an organization, because a business can back up all of its information to a location instead of just keeping one copy of that information, so that if anything happens, thank you for watching.